Did you know you can do a weekend ceremony with different kinds of plant medicines that do the inner work for you? I mean, we still need to do the inner work ourselves, but plant medicine is a great way to speed it up. Listen to this story by Lauren. What is up, Lauren?
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. So you're popping in here after a workout.
I am.
How was it?
You see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Aaron told me to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been what? How many weeks? 6?
I think 5. Maybe
Approaching
6.
6, yeah. 6 weeks. And
I'm hooked. Like Eric said, I caught the bug.
what bug is
The
that?
working out bug.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going up to an hour, 3 days a week now. Like half an hour.
Yeah, you were half an
Yeah.
hour.
I have to talk to you about it after.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. So talk more about what is this bug?
Feeling physically strong. So I did a lot of like inner strength work, and now I felt like my body was time to like strengthen that.
Okay.
I never
But you
felt-
did inner strength work
Yes.
too.
First.
Okay.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that because that's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is inner strength work?
Inner strength work is learning who you are and who you're not, and being more who you are in each moment. Deconditioning and reconditioning. A lot of subconscious work.
Yeah.
Rewiring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that stuff come from?
Inside.
Yeah, but more inside, more than just inside. Like, what is it? Why do we have these two minds?
Well,
that we're not in who we are.
one I think tries to protect us, and it is on default, and it's reactionary. It's based on, I believe, past lives and the way you were raised, the things you came in with in this life to heal. And that one is just an automatic one running in the background that I think 90% of people aren't aware of. And that runs every decision, every thought, every action that you take until you become aware, like think about, oh shit, why am I doing this? Have you ever like thought about why you're doing it? Have you ever thought about why you're thinking that? And then there's the conscious mind that is that reactionary mind that just is, you're just going day by day, not even thinking about it. So there's one that's asleep and then there's one that's awake.
Yep. So when did you first have this realization that there's these two minds?
It probably happened the first time I saw my now husband, because I was never spiritual or anything like that. When I was little, I used to have these experiences I forgot about for a while, but I would look in the mirror and I'd have an out-of-body experience and be like, how do I know I'm me? Like I'd have this thought, and I would go around asking people, and they'd be like, I'm like, do you ever think about this? And they're like, no. And so I just forgot about it because it was very strange. It felt like looking in the mirror, it's like, how do I know I'm me? And so I guess that was the first time. And then the second time was when I saw my husband for the first time. I had this voice that was like, you're gonna marry him. And I had never like realized that I had like a voice in my head until that moment.
Wow. Wow, I think that's our girl's training right there.
Yeah.
So you never heard this voice, and then you saw him and you heard it. But
Yeah.
what sort of things did you do leading up to that period in your life?
I was very physically oriented, so I was like really sick growing up. I became sick at age 12 with migraines, and then I just spiraled. I was classified as fibromyalgia, adolescent fibromyalgia. I was in the first ever Cleveland Clinic adolescent fibromyalgia study. And that was like a time when it wasn't even being recognized for adults. So as a kid, it was like really scary. So that happened, and then from there, I just started getting all these other diagnoses like Lyme, depression, insomnia, migraines, muscle spasms, like you name it. So I was very physically oriented. So my mind was just obsessed with the physical body and like how everything was wrong with it. So it's like I didn't have that space to think about stuff inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not thinking about that stuff inside is what causes the problem.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So 12 up to how old until you finally realized that, you know?
I had a breakdown. I was at Ohio State doing business there, Fisher Business School. And by the time I was 20, it was either 20 or 21, I was on about 15 pharmaceuticals. So I had a pill to wake up, a pill to go to sleep, a pill for migraines, a pill for the body. Like my whole body was like one large rock. So you couldn't see or feel my vertebrae or my spine or my shoulder blades. Like it was all just bound fat fascia, I don't know what people call it. but I was in so much pain, and I was literally prescribed 80 milligrams of Adderall a day.
Just to get going.
Just to function from the chronic fatigue. So but I'm grateful my heart still works. And prescribed. It's not like I was abusing it.
At what age?
I just started it probably when I was 18 or 19, 80 milligrams. Yeah, and it went through till I was about 21.
15 pills.
Yes.
And that.
Yes.
Okay, 21.
Yes. Miserable. Just getting by. Drinking a ton. Drinking. Yes. So pills, prescribed pills, but it still felt like an abuse. You know, I mean, I was taking one symptom, I would take it. Another symptom, take it. There was no space to feel. Like I was always numbed out either on that or drinking or studying. And obviously Adderall's like crap.
So you had no idea who you were. You had a total disconnect.
Total disconnect. And I remember I was living in an apartment with my now husband, and he would come down and grab my backpack every day when I got home from class to help me up the stairs. Because I was just, by the end of the day, it's like I had nothing left in me. And that day he wasn't home, and I barely like got up the stairs, and I just had a total coming to myself God moment. And I had this cabinet with all my pharmaceuticals in it because I wanted to hide it, but it was just, I didn't want it on the countertop for people to see. It was like, I was also ashamed at that time about it. Like I was just always the one who was sick, and all my friends were fine. I just wanted to be like them. And so I had this medicine cabinet, and all my pills were in there. And I just looked at this thing because I was going to take one, and something in me just cracked. And I just went in a fit of like rage and sorrow, and I pulled the medicine cabinet off of the wall and slammed it on the ground. Wow. And the pills flew everywhere, and I started sobbing, and I threw up the pills. I started picking up pills and started throwing them at the wall and at the floor, at the ceiling, like total meltdown. And I just collapsed on the floor sobbing, and I was like, I'm not gonna live like this anymore.
Who was talking?
My insides were talking.
Oh, so you were like, it was like loud and clear.
Yes. And it was this like voice inside me that was like, you can't continue to do this, or like you're gonna die, or you're gonna be miserable, because if I'm this sick, this young, what do I have to look forward to the rest of my life? And that exact sentence went through my head. And I was like, well, I'm gonna heal myself naturally or die trying. So that day, I threw out all my pills, cold turkey, and except my migraine medication and my Adderall.
Okay, before we go any further, you mentioned you had this God moment.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what that is, what that feels like, what's going through in that moment?
It was just like a cracking. It was just this essence of, I can't do this anymore. Like something is wrong. Something is not right, and this is not the way. And it was just a total, like the only way to describe it was like a crack, something cracked. And it's like I opened up to realize that what I had been doing was not serving me, and there must be another way. And I was also very external. I was seeking for answers outside of myself. I was going from doctor to doctor, to healer to doctor to doctor. They were telling me what to do, what was wrong with me day after day, which then just perpetuates this idea that I'm sick and broken.
So this cracking, you felt it inside your body?
Yes.
And then something shot out of it?
Yes. And that was like, do something different.
And you went through that, and then what did it feel like coming out physically?
It felt like I was lighter, and I was also terrified because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't continue what I was doing the way I was doing it. I mean, I wasn't living life. I was surviving on a very, very thin thread. Total survival mode. And miserable, depressed, in pain, all that. And at a very young age at that time.
Yeah. But you cracked your energy, you got that negative energy out, you became lighter, instantly, now you're living in a little bit of a different kind of fear. It's almost not like the fear that you were living before. It's like, holy shit, everything's about to change.
Everything.
I'm going to now have to step into a journey that I don't know.
And it's in my hands. And it was the first time in my life when I had the realization that my life is in my hands. Before it was my parents or the doctors or my school, my teachers that were telling me what I could and couldn't do, what I was or what I wasn't, how sick I was or how sick I wasn't. So that God moment, I believe, is when people decide to take their life into their own hands. And I think that's the first step of healing. And healing cannot happen until that moment happens, or that decision.
Yeah.
Mine was just dramatic. It doesn't have to be that dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a full-blown realization that you have the control to take your life in your own hands.
Yes.
Because you just hit
the bottom.
Totally. Yeah.
But look, you bounce back up. It's like you hit the bottom, bounce back up. Okay, let's go. So now what?
Yeah. So then I threw out all my pills, which people are like, how did you like wean off all this stuff? And I was like, I'm just a very like, I can start and stop things. And the reason I kept 2 medications was because I was getting really bad migraines. Like ones where I would lose my speech, half my body would go numb. I couldn't talk. So those were super scary. So I kept the migraine medication I needed, and I needed to finish my last semester of college. I had never not functioned on Adderall for like 8 years at this point. So I was like, I'm gonna finish this off. So while I'm doing case studies and tests and finishing up my senior year, I started studying natural health. I just started Googling things. I'm like, how do you heal? And I learned about like referral pain. So like where you feel pain in one place isn't where the pain is actually situated. And so that just made me think of things differently. I'm like, oh, what I'm feeling is coming from different places. So that started kind of getting my mind thinking. And so I just started studying things and testing myself. I cleaned up my food. It was definitely tough. I went like a full 180 overnight essentially, which isn't always possible for people, and I get that, but for me that's what happened. And then for my graduation present, instead of like traveling Europe, I was like, Mom, Dad, I need help. I would like to go to like a natural health course. So, I did that. I went for a week, became a natural health whatever. I don't even remember the name, but I learned about iridology, which is reading health and sickness through the eyes, enzyme therapy, and a bunch of other different modalities. And then from there, I dove into like specific ones and started using myself as a guinea pig. So I did a lot of enzyme therapy, a lot of fasting, juices, supplements, just kind of seeing what would stick on the wall.
And a lot of stuff stuck, huh?
Yeah, I remember the moment, I think enzyme therapy helped me the most, which like, it's an amazing modality, but I would fast and then take enzymes. They're called proteolytic enzymes, so they eat up basically bound fascia and bound things that are in your body. They're like little Pac-Men that go in. And they're totally, they're safe, you can't overdose on them, like they're completely natural. And so I would do that, I would fast and take them, and it got to a point where for the first time I felt my whole body release. Like there was like a crack and tingling throughout my whole body, and I could move my body. Like my shoulders released, my collarbone, I could feel my spine. And in that moment, I was like, "This is working." I was like, "I can heal. I can do this."
Wow.
And it closed back up like a little bit right after it, but it was the moment that there was a muscle memory that it could open, which is what the body needs because it doesn't have any reference point because I was sick for so long.
Mm-hmm. And you release so much energy too.
Yeah.
So along this journey, you did a whole 180. I mean, that's tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what are the things that you did besides, the schooling? Like, go more deeper into like what kept you on course.
It was my why. On course, it was like I just felt like I was meant to do something and help people, and I needed to help myself first. Like teacher, heal thyself, or whatever that saying is. And I just always felt like I had this greater purpose, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I would do, but I just knew that I had to heal, and that I wanted to help other people heal. And I also wanted to feel well. Like that was my driving. It's like I want to know what it feels like to feel well, to wake up and have energy, and to like live life instead of just getting by. Like there has to be more to this than what I've been living.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my big why. But I found out that all the physical stuff didn't compare to like what the inner work did for me.
So go more into the inner work, yeah.
So I started realizing that no matter what fast I did or cleanse, like I did a 2-week water fast, I did juice cleanses, I mean, you name it, I did it. And I had glimpses of feeling better, but I wasn't well. Like I found myself on one side of the coin, I was on all these pharmaceuticals, and on the other side, on my natural health journey, my new medicine cabinet was a supplement cabinet. So it's like I found myself on the opposite side of the same coin. And I had that realization, I'm like, I'm doing the same thing.
By the way, I did the same thing too.
Yeah.
First year and a half, 2 of my transformation. It's weird.
Yeah,
I went from bad pills like Adderall and pain pills. I did all that stuff too, to then supplements.
Yeah.
But sorry.
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
it's a thing. Yeah, and so then I'm like, what am I doing? And I started, my husband and I, we moved to Colorado, and when we were moving there, something in me was like, I want to learn more about the mind or something. So I don't know where this came from. And
I think you know.
Do you know Jim Rohn?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like the OG to
Awesome.
Tony Robbins. So I bought a bunch of, at the time it was CDs in the car. So I bought a bunch of CDs of Jim Rohn and like all this subconscious mind stuff. I just found it on, I don't remember where I found it, but I got like these, I don't know, maybe 10 of them. And so my husband and I drove separately, like to Colorado, so we had 2 cars. And so I made him listen to it while I listened to it too. And we would like swap at the gas station.
That's awesome.
And I was like, I was like, I think there's more. And so like, let's create our life. So we were like listening to Jim Rohn and all this stuff. And I just started to realize that he said something. He said, learn to work harder on yourself than you do at anything else in life. God damn, Jim Rohn, you're right.
That's it.
Yeah. And he says it in this voice that's really funny too. So that's kind of was our introduction to that. And then we watched like The Secret at one point, which like opened me up to what's possible. Not just really manifestation, but using your mind to create your reality in a way. I think that The Secret misses like vital practical action steps. But like, so just started doing these things and reading about it. And I just found that the subconscious was driving the sickness. So I truly believe what helped me was working on my subconscious and my sickness consciousness. I've been sick for so long that I identified with being sick. Even when I started healing, it was in the lens of, I'm sick, there's something wrong, I need to fix myself. And so that's perpetually going on in the background, which is I was saying, things that you're not aware of. And when I realized that, I'm like, okay, I need to like work on myself. So
How did you realize that?
through just the reading and
Just by reading?
Just by reading and taking in information, new information that I had never thought about before. But a lot of it just made more sense than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
There's this one book by something Stern, I forget his name, it's called The Undivided Mind. And he has another book, but he was talking about specifically with fibromyalgia, which is what I had been dealing with, how the psyche was the core root of the issue of that. And I thought that was really interesting. And he goes through all these studies, how he works with people in their psyche. So I guess probably this book was more like a really big impetus for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, I'm like, okay, because a lot of doctors I go to, they would tell me, they're like, it's just in your head, like you're not sick. And I'm like, I really don't feel well, you know? I mean, I'm 16 years old, I don't want to be at home on a Saturday night because I don't feel well. I want to be out with my friends drinking and being a hooligan.
And then not feeling well anymore. But then you feel good again.
Yeah. So a lot of doctors had like gaslit me and stuff throughout the years and told me it was all in my head, but not in like a way that this doctor was writing in the book. He's like, it's not your fault. There's no way you could ever know, and it's the psych. So I started really working with the psych through different books. I found a teacher to help me, but people were like, how did you heal yourself? And I was like, you do all the juice cleanses, all the fasts, all the raw. I was a raw vegan for 11 months. I only ate fruit for 11 months.
Yeah.
Horrible. My poor blood sugar.
You were still a mess inside.
I was a mess inside. I was so depressed. I'm like, I'm ever gonna get out of this. I was totally bloated. I mean, cystic acne everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was just horrible. And they're like, oh, it's just detox symptoms. And I'm like, after 11 months, I'm like, okay. Another voice came. It's like, come on, Lauren, this is not working. So then people ask, and I tell them, you know, it's going to be an interesting answer, but I worked on my mind and my heart and my subconscious, and then my body followed. And I stay true to that, and that will be my answer till I die.
Yeah. That's the only thing that heals you, right?
Yes, my mind, my heart.
Yeah, and now you don't have any of those things.
No.
That they labeled you.
No. That's why I say I was labeled. Like, I try to stay away from I had.
So because you were labeled, it was created.
Yes.
When you take off the label,
Mm-hmm.
take your life in your own hands, then what? Now what's Lauren doing now?
So while I was healing, and that's when I was a raw vegan, I was like super depressed still. I'm like, am I ever gonna get out of this? And I watched the Hunger Games with Katniss Everdeen, and I saw her, and she was wearing this thing. It's similar to this, and she just looked like a warrior, badass. And I'm like, that's what I need, a symbol of strength I could wear. And I was like, I'm gonna order that. So I ordered it. It was called a Huntress Cowl, a crocheted version on Etsy, and it became my modern day war paint. And I would wear it and help me like stand stronger. And it sounds silly, but it, like, I believe in symbols.
Did it work?
Yes, it worked.
Okay, and it's not so.
It worked. And so throughout this time, I'm healing, I'm working on my mind, I'm wearing this cowl, and then I was actually also working in natural health. So I had a biofeedback device, I had a Rife device, I was helping people with that, and then I was talking to my teacher one day, and I was on a new protocol. And
What was the protocol?
I don't even remember what it was. It was some other protocol. She looked at me, she's like, Lauren, you're not a freaking protocol. And something in me clicked again. And I was like, holy shit. Again, it's a realization I'm doing the same thing. It's like, I didn't realize it. And so I was like, I'm not a protocol. And that day I retired from natural health. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I got to the point where I was trying to help people, but they were taking more than taking their own lives into their own hands. So it's like they wanted me to heal them, which is very energetically sucking and very depleting while I'm still in my thing, you know, and I'm healing immensely. And so I decided to retire that day. I sold my devices. I called the clinic I worked at. I said, you know, I'll finish off and I'm done.
And this was what
This
year?
was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like really on the healing journey, like mentally and emotionally at that point, like really learning how all my physical ailments came from a psychological standpoint and emotional standpoint.
What are some of the exercises you did?
So I have it here. One, I started using a gym timer, and it goes off every 5 minutes and vibrates so that I can see where my mind is. So that helped me break the cycle, because when you're not feeling well and sick, or things are moving slower than you want, like you're thinking that all the time without realizing it. So I'm just like, oh, am I ever gonna get better? I don't feel well today, or just like negative comments. And so when I implemented the gym timer, I was able to see where my thoughts were. And people are like, every 5 minutes, it drives you crazy. I'm like, no, it's like a great awareness thing. So that really helped me. Meditation really helped me. So to get out of my monkey mind and just be inside myself, like it's always there, but it's like learning to detach from it and observe it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so meditation, this was the number one thing that helped me at the timer. And then like my teacher is the number one thing. But like what I implemented at home was this stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love the 5 minute time.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get some of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2018, then what?
Yeah. Then I was like, I want to get back in business, damn it, because I'm a business person at heart. I always wanted to create something. In the middle of all this, I was like creating random businesses that just didn't work, like a chocolate company.
But you were like in creative mindset.
Yes,
like,
always.
Okay.
Yeah. I always wanted to start a business.
But you weren't in creative mindset before when you were taking pills.
No, I was not.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Afterwards, it's like
boom, then it comes out because you broke your shell.
Yeah.
You broke that, thick energy. Energy.
So it opened up room for that. Yeah. And so then I'm like, I want to go back in business and I want to work for somewhere in operations, like 3 days a week, because I was still afraid. I still had parts of me that didn't believe that I could be somewhere at like 8 a.m. all day and then come home and then do it again. Like there was this thing, because I had been sick for so long that I was like afraid, but I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to prove to myself that I can do it, because really the mind was telling me I couldn't do it. And so I found this paid internship with a vegan delivery company in Cleveland, and they were like, we needed an ops intern to do like every aspect of the business. I was like, this is nuts. This is exactly what I asked for and what I wanted, literally to the T. I would have done it for free. I just wanted to get back in that energy. At the time, my husband was working for a property manager. And so we were like both doing these separate things. And then I was there for almost 2 years. And at that time, after 2 years, it was like 2019 time, my husband and I decided to go into business together and start a real estate company. So we started 2 real estate companies, and now we have 3. So one where we help investors buy and sell investment properties, 1 to 50 units and residential portfolios. And he's the agent. I do all the ops and marketing, because I don't like to talk to people that much. He has like infinite energy, and I have to protect my energy a little bit more than him.
No, that's awesome. And that idea came through because why?
Because we both had been working on ourselves, and we're like, we want something more than this. He was in a shitty work environment. I was totally done with my work environment. And we're like, we can create our world. Like, let's create something amazing and do it with intention and purpose. We found that a lot of these people investing in Cleveland were just like slumlords and like leaving these properties to tenants to fend for themselves. And we're like, what if we created something intentional and we worked with investors who cared about the properties that they were buying, and we connected them, and so it was like a win-win all around.
And you knew if you were doing it intentionally from a good place that you had no doubts.
Yes. And also there was a lot of residential agents who were trying to do investment properties, but they really didn't have the expertise, so then these investors were getting bad investments. So it was like all around, we found this niche where we were like, why don't we just become the expert and do it intentionally and purposely? So that's what we did. And then we also started investing on the side as well, raising money to buy larger apartment complexes, like 50 and up units. And then we have a third business now with the partner, just us and him, where we buy like smaller units, so we own 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
All from just a little inner work.
Yeah.
Or a lot of it every day.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then
through that, I remember looking down one day and being like, so once I quit natural health or retired, I was like, I still want to help people. And I love the real estate, but I love a physical, tangible product, because that's like what really helped me. Like when I was healing, like something that could warm me from the inside out, something that helped me look good and helped me like feel like a badass, frankly. And I looked down, I was wearing this crocheted version of this cowl, and I was like, this is it. Like nobody else was making them. They were crocheted versions, but there was a lot of inherent issues with the one I had bought and the other ones I had bought from Etsy. It was bulky, it was itchy, it cowled too much, so my grandma was always yelling at me that my neck was exposed. She's like, you're right, grandma. And the hood looked like a Teletubby. I couldn't even wear the hood. Like, who wants an unusable hood? When you couldn't wash it, I think I said, and then when I would travel, if I took it off, it was so bulky, it took up my whole backpack or my bag, or didn't fit at all. And so I'm like, what if I could recreate this, make it so that I can automate it also, because you can't really automate crocheting. So like make it from fabric, and then infuse like magic and intention into it, and be like, the whole intention is like to help whoever's wearing it get through whatever they're going through. It doesn't have to be like a natural, or it doesn't have to be a health problem, but everybody's going through something. Everyone's going through a hero's journey, you know.
So you're infusing magic and intention.
And strength and courage into it. So that's what I decided. So I sourced fabric. I have literally a closet full of fabrics, like hundreds of them, and I just wanted to start with one SKU, so one with a couple different colors. So I worked with a pattern maker. We perfected the pattern. Then I filed patent a year and a half ago, and then I launched in September 2021. And then I got my patent in 2022 of June, after being denied. So, yeah.
So you had to go back to them?
Yeah, and you know,
you're like, I am not going to be denied.
I'm not going to be. I was like,
who I am anymore.
I'm like, this is meant to be mine. Like, I'm meant to bring this to the world. And so, actually, I didn't just leave it in my lawyer's hands. Like, she was like, I'll talk to them to see if we refile, if they'll let it through, basically. And so I made a whole Canva presentation of showing like why they denied me. I used that image and screenshot images of mine and did arrows and was like, this is the difference. I pointed out like 9 differences, and I sent it to my lawyer, and she was like, that was like the most helpful thing ever. So when she talked to them, he said that if you send it through, I'm gonna deny it anyway. And she said, I recommend not. And I said, we're doing it. I said, send it through, send him the Canva thing, please. 3 weeks later, I got my patent.
Yes. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. It is so thin.
Yeah, it's thin, but enough. So there's like different thicknesses of fabric. So this is like a winter version.
That's a winter version?
Yeah. So it's basically a crossbody sleeveless hoodie, and it combines all the best aspects of a hoodie, vest, and scarf into one. So you have functionality, fashion, and warmth without restriction. And you feel empowered when you wear it. Something ancestral about it. So
and it's infused with intention and magic. So if you wear it, you're just going to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And you're just going to be even more powerful.
Yeah. And it feels like a hand to your heart. Like when you're going through a tough time, someone gives you a hug, or you put your hand on your heart just to breathe. Like, that's how it feels.
Looks good.
Things.
Okay, so I want to change topics a little bit here. I want to talk about ayahuasca. You went to go do it. So anyone who's ever done any of this, I always want to hear about it. So
it's funny. I've been wanting to do it for years. And
since when?
Probably 2016. So many years. I had thought about it. Every time I was about to do it or trying to do it, it didn't work out for whatever reason. And I was just trusting. And so I'm in a metaphysical program, and they believe like they go from the inside out, so they don't believe in like the plant medicine from the outside in, which is like totally fine, and I respect it, and the program changed my life. So I'm like, I had a small window of when it ended to when it started again to do it. So I found this place. I flew to DC, not knowing anybody. I wanted to stay in the country. I know how people like go outside the country. I was more comfortable staying in the country, and I went to to DC with 10 or 15 people, and it was like the most transformational experience of my life. It's like it cracked me wide open. For the first time ever, you see the thoughts. I was seeing the thoughts, but they were like there.
They were just objects.
They were just objects.
What did they look like?
Nothing. Just air. I just knew they were there.
You knew they were there.
I knew they were there. And so when I would start to think something, I would say, oh, I can't be bothered with thoughts. Like that, it was just so free, and I felt joy. You know when it's like feeling joy for the first time in my life or something, like true, raw,
joy and love.
Joy and love. Yes.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
Yes, and it's just I couldn't help it smiling.
For how long?
Oh my God, the whole night. I mean, the first night not so much. The second night it was like the whole night. And the shaman was chanting the whole time, like very ancestral music, and I felt like I was at like the rock concert of my life. Like I was laughing, I was clapping. I can't even describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's inside of you, obviously, because where else is it coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you knew this is me. This is my core.
Yeah. And some people like had a tough time that were next to me, and so I think it's different. It can be different each time. It's not always like those like rainbows and butterflies. But I look forward to next time I do it. And my intention was to soften when I went in. I felt crystallized still inside a little bit.
Yeah.
And definitely softening.
How many ceremonies did you do?
I did 2 back to back, and then the third day we did San Pedro all day, so it's just like a heart opening, nervous system regulating. Medicine.
But there's no psychedelic.
No, not really.
Right. What was the second day like?
That was the second day. So the first night, I was more like in a limbo. I didn't see anything. It was very physical for me, which is like my whole life. Like my whole body was shaking for hours, both nights. Even while I was
clearing up energy.
Yes, it was. I was so sore for like a month later, just like moving and twitching, and I couldn't stop if I wanted to, type of thing. I mean, I could have, but I was letting it work. So the first night, very mild. It was just the body stuff, and I missed the call for the second dose, which was just probably meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second night, I went for that second dose, and that's when my whole world like opened up.
Your whole world opened up.
Yeah.
So now, what is your view of the work?
That I'm here to create it, and that the people here doing the work are the ones shifting the energy of the planet. And I know it sounds like kind of woo, but it's like a true thing. It's like if 1% of a population or something changes inside, then it shifts the whole trajectory of like the whole world for the future. And I think that you and I, and the people doing the work, it's much more than just us. It's like bringing in that feeling that I felt, so that we can live in that more often, so we don't have to do journeys. That we could. I believe it's living in the everyday like that is like the goal.
The present moment, less thoughts, like that feeling of love and joy. It's there.
That's who we
you
are.
Can tap into it.
Yeah, it's who we are.
Our bodies just forget and get dense, and they can't access that part. So doing the work, like besides, I know you had the 5-minute your thought observing exercise, which is awesome. What else did you do? Did you do stuff like journaling and stuff like that, and meditation? Like describe some of your meditations.
Also with this thing, when it would go off, my teachers taught me like you can see where your thoughts are, and if they're negative, to replace it with a positive. So it's not just like you notice it. So there's this saying by the psychologist, I think in the 1800s, who worked with psych work, and he found that this is like the most beneficial overall one to say to your subconscious, so that helps with transformation. It's every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. So every time my timer would go off, I would say that. Or something similar to that, like if I'm feeling it. It's something, but it has to be replaced. Like it's not enough it's enough to start to just notice it, but then the next level is replacing it with what you do want.
Yeah.
So I did that. Journaling, I started doing a lot of astrology, so seeing what to expect at different times in my life, and knowing that it's like not personal, it's just a time in my life.
So astrology, like it's more like kind of connected to like shadow frequencies, right?
Yeah.
And like
well, each part of your astrology chart gives you the opportunity for a higher or lower energy. So like there's like positive aspects of a sign and like a more like shadowy side. So my teacher would work with me and like us and say, hey, this is coming up this year or in the next week or the next month. and you have the opportunity to raise the energy. You could stay here stuck in the shadowy part, or here's what to look for, and you have an opportunity in each moment to know it's there and to choose to do something differently. So I used astrology a lot to help. Did that, journaling, more reading. I got a really good therapist, coach who's spiritual, who uses astrology. Yeah.
So you know that these are the emotions that could potentially come up, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
So you prepare for them,
Yes.
right? And then what? And then you're just contemplating on the feelings and the emotions and the thoughts.
So as it comes up, let's say a situation happens the same time every month because the moon is somewhere or something in my chart, like that's a real thing. So if I, for example, I wake up in the morning, I do my meditation, I see where the moon is that day, I can say I can know what to expect based on the past and what I've learned with my teacher. And so when a situation comes up, my old patterns want to rage or like react the same way I used to, or be sad or whatever the MO is. And I could just say no to it. I could say no, and I could choose something else. So I'm noticing it like I noticed with my timer, and then I'm replacing it with who I want to be. And it doesn't necessarily happen, like it's easier to say it, but it's like the practice of doing it, because the transformation always happens in the moment. You can plan for it, you can read, you can journal, you can do all these things, but it happens in everyday life when you have a decision to make. Do I want to act the same way I used to, or do I want to be who I want to be and act in a way that is in alignment with my spirit?
And there's endless amounts of opportunities to make that choice,
Every
right?
second.
Every second a portal opens up.
You're casual.
That's what it is. Every second a portal opens up. Okay, so what else?
You tell me.
All right, so we went on this walk,
Mm-hmm.
right? What'd you think about that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved that. Like I was always looking for. I was calling in a place to work out, but also like become strong, and then at the same time that was more purposeful. Like my husband goes to JCC, which is great, and my friend goes to Lifetime, but I wanted something smaller and like a more of a community. So that's why I love Zero Doubt Club, and I found it. It's also like 5 minutes from my house, and I love that. How many people showed up? Like that just
22.
That just goes to show that you guys are building a great community. Like everybody's there just to be better, not just on the outside, which I think a lot of other places lack, is the inside part.
Yeah, and I think community is part of the inner work.
It is.
Like sharing our story and hearing others share, that's the inner work. So community's inner work, you know, the surrender experience of okay, I'm not going to be these thoughts and these mind thoughts, and separating yourself from their trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where has your trust level been in the past, let's say, 7 years of your life?
Fluctuating, but a lot better. It's because I can trust myself more. So I realize that I can't depend on other people's reactions and trusting what they're going to do in a sense, but I can trust the way that I'm going to respond and who I want to be in the moment. So it's just moving from this external trust to internal trust.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which that reflects externally too, but it starts here.
Yeah. So we set intentions for the walk.
Mm-hmm.
What was yours?
My intention was to see the possibility instead of the problems, and to also believe in things that I can't yet see yet in the physical reality.
So back to more trust.
Yes.
And more thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It's always that, right?
Yes,
it's always
it is.
programming to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're about to do a challenge for that. You got your challenge buddy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's gonna be prizes. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna do it on the app.
Okay.
And so what are your two?
Possibility over problem.
So you're just gonna think that and journal that every day
Okay.
for 14 days, right?
Okay.
And the other one?
Believing in things that I feel inside that I don't yet see in the physical world.
And how do you do that?
When the negative thoughts come in of like, that's not possible, or how's that going to happen, I'm just going to replace it with it's happening, because it is.
It's awesome. What advice would you give someone that's like kind of seeking, looking, maybe, do I go on this journey? Do I not go on this journey? It's too hard. Like, what advice would you give someone?
Jim Rohn.
There it is. Boom. That's a good one.
I think that he's a really good starting point, because he's not woo-woo, he's not like do all these things. It's more like take control of your mind. And for me, that like prompted me because it was more approachable than I think meditate for an hour a day or like do something like that. Like I think you need baby steps. A lot of people. So I think Jim Rohn is a great place to start. There's a book also called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Small book, but it's really powerful to start there and get a timer. Like start seeing where you're
awesome.
$25 or something. It's a Gym Boss on Amazon. And you're able to see how your thoughts are really considering you for 99.9%.
Right. You can change the thought
You can change
that
the thought.
powerful. Okay, Tamir, thank you so much for coming on, and now we gotta do hugs.
Okay.
All right.